years, I've been running an art foundation, which has sort of turned into an art museum. So we've been building the Salam Art Museum for the last year. And,
Get a little closer.
Yeah, this is what I've been doing for the last year, building the Salam Art Museum here in Suli. And I'd say after that is technically I'm also hosting this cultural Diwan thing to let people know who are the artists in Slimani, especially all over Kurdistan, to get people more involved as more of a community thing that into arts and culture here, because I think they've been really separated from it.
Yeah.
So I would say that I have collected art. If you say what I am naturally, I am an art collector. I've been doing that for the last 3 years, and just trying to do some service for things that are
of a passion of yours.
It is, yeah. It is.
Yeah.
So it is a passion of mine.
It's good
It has grown to be a really important passion for me.
Exactly, and it's not only something that's nice for you to do professionally, but it also helps the community, man. Because one thing that's been lacking, I'd say, is we actually done a daily poll about it today.
Yeah.
It's funny because you saw the poll, right?
I did, yeah.
Let me see how the results are right now.
Yeah,
as
so
well.
we done a poll about whether art in our culture is a necessity or a
luxury.
But then the most important part was whether what people think about the art in Iraq right now, Iraq and Kurdistan.
Yeah.
And people
Which the two terms I think are interchangeable.
Yeah.
In a way.
100%. Like, yeah, I mean, the question wasn't the best question, but
I think it was a great. No, I think it was a great question.
I think it could have been phrased better, but it brought up an important topic.
It did,
what I mean?
yeah. It did get a debate going.
As of right now, it's 70-30 for necessity.
Yeah.
So it's good. Like the majority at least thinks so.
But there was someone who put up a comment and said that there's a lot of talent out there and a lot of
it's not being supported.
It's not being supported well enough.
It's being seen, yeah.
It's being and this is what you're helping with. This is what what makes it important. What you're doing.
I'd like to think that I am attempting to help with that, but I feel like the art scene here is not really regulated.
Yeah.
There is no art scene in a way, and the reason why, for instance, if we have emerging artists, contemporary artists, or even artists from the past, which let's say modernist artists, the reason that they have a lack of support or recognition is because there is no ecosystem that supports all of that anyway. So we don't really have fine art museums. We don't have fine art galleries. We don't have openings for these artists to go and say, listen, I have a shot now. I can show what I am doing. So I'd like to say I'm trying to help with bringing recognition to artists old and new, but it's still a very, very daunting challenge. So I don't think that it comes easy, and I don't like to say that what I am doing is almost sort of representative of all the artists that are based here in Iraqi Kurdistan or in Iraq. But I feel like starting and doing that is way better than just sitting back and saying, let somebody else do it.
So it's not the lack of artists that is the problem here. It's more, like you said, it's the ecosystem that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And do you think it's also one of the reasons that a lot of people get demotivated from following their passion? Because,
well, I mean, we all know this, that art and the arts in general aren't really that supported in our culture here, which is quite sad. That was never the case.
What do you mean by supported, though?
Supported as like by the family, by institutional, like as a means of institutional, let's say the family, the workplace, education, schools. We don't really put that at the top of our concerns. We want to build people who are successful in being doctors or being architects or working for the government. That's the number one thing we do. We train people to, when they finish high school or college, they jump in right to government, to work in the public sector, which I think is horrible. I think that's why we're kind of delving away from being not that creative as a society. And that's a pretty ballsy statement, so I'll talk more about that. But I feel like since it's not a part of our top priorities, it is also not something that really concerns the public. So
Yeah.
if we're not looking at art as something important, then society won't also go with that. So I feel like the lack of support is drawn from that.
No, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. The only thing I take issue with is saying that there should be an ecosystem, which I don't know if you insinuated, just correct me if I'm wrong, is the government should, put a ecosystem whereby it helps people, artists flourish.
Well, actually, I'd say the government should not have any role in developing that ecosystem.
Yeah, got me.
Because I feel like the government, they have been doing I would say that it's not like they haven't done anything, but they've been doing the wrong stuff. They've been doing it wrongly, and I feel like that's actually regressed. There's no progress on that front. I feel like people who are self-motivated, coming from a private sector background, or if they're just into art or whatever, I feel like those people should be really getting stuff done rather than going and asking for help from the government or from governmental entities like the Ministry of Culture or so on and so forth. They've been doing projects. There's no denying that they've been doing a lot, but they haven't really been doing what's needed. And even when they're doing certain stuff that can be important for our society and for our culture, they're doing it in the wrong way, which it's a total backstab to people who are trying to do it in the right way.
Right.
Do you think pursuing art as a profession is just for quote unquote rich kids, or can everyone?
I think some of the
pursue it
best
because-
artists don't even come from a wealthy background.
Because it doesn't pay that well. Like you
Of
probably
course, no, it
know
doesn't
that.
pay at all. No,
It doesn't
don't get
pay
me
at
wrong.
all, right?
An artist, have you heard of this joke? Like, there was a TED Talk or something like that where it was talking about why the artist is always poor. I mean, this artist is essentially making works. They're selling it, but they're still all very poor. What's the reason behind this? Why aren't artists, like dancing in money? Because they're selling works, right?
Yeah.
And it's selling well.
And yeah, I mean, if you look at the international art market, that's something else. I mean, if you want to look at that and compare it, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry. That's something else. But
Yeah.
if you really want to look at it from the core, from here, locally, I'd say that actually the people who are interested in art or going into art or wanting to be artists, I don't think most of them come from a wealthy background. I think the majority of them come from very either how do you say, middle class families. They send their children off to art schools here. We have thank God we have a lot of art institutes, and we even have an art college here at the University of Slimani, which I'll throw some shade now. It's not being run really well, but and it's also not creating the best of what they can really achieve with that. However, we do still have those platforms, and they're open to all backgrounds. So that's really important.
But going back to the whole, whether being well off helps you as an artist, the thing is, right, we don't have an ecosystem that helps these people, right? I'd imagine if you did have a bit of dough, if you did have a bit of money, it would be easier for you to run an art gallery or something. You know what I mean?
But that depends on what you want to do, right? Because being an art gallerist is very much different than being an artist. So I feel like if you have dough and you're interested in other parts of art, so whether you want to be a gallerist, whether you want to be an art dealer or collector, I think dough is your main concern there.
Yeah.
But as an artist, I feel like you can make it very much without that the dough, without the money, because an artist really is there to put out his or her message, and whatever that is, it could be technique, it could be a cause that they're fighting for. It never really is anything in particular, and also I feel like dough is very essential. For me, I'm not gonna lie.
You're well off.
I like to say that I inherited a lot of good dough, but I'd say that I'm using it, for instance, in the right manner, which I feel like my parents are proud of. So I don't feel like
I do want to.
We were just talking about that. Yeah.
What me and you?
Go ahead. Finish, Al.
Who are you talking with?
Go ahead.
Because I don't remember talking to you about this.
Oh, I was talking about it with Herja. Sorry.
Oh, right.
I'll
Yeah.
go on
So
about it.
I mean, I'm sure this is what you were telling Herja, but look, there's a lot of well-off, inherited wealth being spunked on Nergala, trips to
Qa'da.
Dubai,
Qa'das,
Qa'das, a lot of money on Qa'das, you're right. And,
That's
you know,
horrible.
Buenoshas and whatnot.
Ayla Hawrakani.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
they're
whole
getting
thing
paid.
now.
Yeah.
That song was created to support this failing generation.
That's
This
true.
failing generation is not you and I. This failing generation, I don't want to be specific or even too broad. It's either generation XYZ or whatever you want to call it. But I feel like that song was literally created to support the disasters that we're.
I mean,
going
if
through
you
right
look
now.
at the music video, it's insinuating
it's
that
not
as
art
well.
to me though.
Oh, nobody said it.
People
Yeah.
would go that far and say.
But let me get back to what I was saying. It's refreshing seeing someone, you know, because whether you look, I might be throwing some shade here, but people who say that, you know, art and money shouldn't, you know, correlate with each other and whatnot,
They correlate very much.
you know, you're being naive, because the more art investors like Shad there are in the market, there's more of an incentive for them to, you know, go out and look. If imagine you're an artist, you make something really nice. Someone like you comes along and says, "Hey, I'm gonna put a bid on that." Does well, sells it. That person, he or she's gonna go and make another one. Like, this is why. Do you think this is what we need more of, though? More
People
art
who can
investors.
invest in art.
That's what the ecosystem's based on.
Technically, the ecosystem is
Yeah.
that's a possible way that the ecosystem can thrive. That we have enough private people, private sector people that are willing to spend money in art, whether that is supporting an artist, commissioning works from them, or, you know, telling that artist, go have an exhibition, I'll pay for everything. Or let's say, you know, printing books. One of the most important thing is not actually, you know, doing exhibitions or even, you know, supporting an artist. That's all very important for an artist or for an exhibition to go through. One of the most important thing is to foster education about art in Kurdistan. That's one thing that we're lacking at. We have so many books that I believe written by the wrong people, doesn't get out really. You know, they're in the vicinity of Slimani, Slimania or Erbil, and that's it. And they don't bring enough. I feel like we should be having English language publications more about Kurdish art, for instance. And actually, that might even cost you nothing to do. You can print that book in Iran or China. There's a lot of those artists that also you can help artists publish books about their own art.
I'd like to go on your topic a bit. What you're saying makes total sense, because if you, it makes
But
a
sorry,
sense.
just sorry to cut
Go
you
on.
off. Just to answer your question, yes, I do believe there should be more private people invested in art. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, you know, there being more galleries and whatnot can help this ecosystem. But what this ecosystem does that might be indirect is, for example, you just done a cultural Diwan. You hosted a cultural Diwan for Dr. Osman, who sold some of his arts to one of the renowned museums. Tell me what the name of the museum was again. Imperial
Dr.
Museum.
Osman has more than 10 works at the Imperial War Museum in London. He's been, you know, represented in very important private collections. One is the Mohammed Makia collection, also based in London.
Yeah.
He was a former Iraqi architect, but a very famous one. He had a very, very big collection of art that was that just a few months ago there was a book that was published about. Sadly, Dr. Osman's work weren't featured in that book, but another Kurdish artist was featured in that book as well. However, Dr. Osman is also one of those artists who is Kurdish, who has exhibited his art in Turkey, in Istanbul. That's not very easy to do nowadays. And he did that, I believe, a few years ago. And he did it about the Kurdish genocide. He did it about Anfal in Turkey. So that's a phenomenal stuff for an artist. Dr. Osman is a great artist, and I feel like, you know, obviously goes without saying, more people should know about him.
Yeah,
and
we
his
met him. He
artwork.
was very inspirational.
I was
to
very
be
happy that
honest.
you guys got to meet him, because I feel like, you know, meeting these types of people, meeting the artists behind the artworks, draws a lot of more meaning to their artworks. However, on the subject of the cultural diwan, so that for those obviously who don't know, I'm just going to put it out there. I do host a weekly cultural diwan at my own place. A lot of people tell me that I'm crazy to do that, because why would you open your house up to strangers or people you don't know? Actually, I'm surprised that the first two. So we've done two now.
Yep.
You guys came to the second one.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that it has been a really good mix of people I know.
Yeah.
And really I can vibe with, and also a few people I don't know.
Yeah.
But I really do like for more people to come to these sort of sessions, whom I don't know, or people who don't know each other either. I feel like the whole point of this is to network our ideas, our exchanges, what we have on our minds, our hearts. What do we want to talk about? That is important. I do invite somebody to speak. For instance, I invited Dr. Osman, who I did a presentation for him. We talked about the artworks, right? But it's beyond that as well. It's for people who are coming there to connect with one another. So it's not that you're just coming to come and listen to somebody talk, which is also very interesting. They do talk about a lot of interesting stuff that you don't usually get that access to.
Yeah.
It's just to foster more of like getting people into a community where they can really appreciate art and artists.
Just from our perspective, being guests in your cultural diwan, I think it's a very cool experience being able to. I met a lot of people. Most of the people, except Shad, I didn't know a lot of those people that were there.
That's awesome.
The fact that
Saman?
oh yeah, he was.
Saman was a known guy. Yeah. Saman.
And the fact that you get to have like one-on-one conversations with the artists.
Yep.
Having a coffee with them, just sitting down, listening to their life story is very cool, and not a lot of places host that, if any, to be honest.
That's an interesting thing. We won't go into that too much, but I would like to say that, remember one of the guests that was sitting next to me?
Yeah.
Who turned out to be a family friend of yours?
Oh, yeah.
So he told me, and he thought I didn't know, but I know very well. So cultural diwans, that's what I like to call them, but they're really known as cultural saloons, have existed in Iraq since the early 1950s and 40s also.
Really?
So we used to have these sort of sessions, these sort of gatherings in Slimani in the 1970s, at the height of our intellectuality.
Was it for poets more, or?
It was for writers, for poets, for artists, these people who were culturally significant, who were leaders of their time, grouped together. They were talking about all the issues that mattered at that time. Sadly, none of these people recorded these events, obviously, not because recorded as in by a camera or something, but they never really recorded even what was spoken about, in written form or whatever.
That's right.
But we used to have these kind of gatherings way back in the day.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is not entirely something that's new,
Or
but
original.
but I'm trying to sort of bring back. There's been a gap where we have been really ruptured from that whole sort of civil society kind of thing for the art and culture. So when he told me, he was like, we had these kind of gatherings in the 70s. I was like, yes, I know, and that's why I'm trying to do this now. Because it's never too late to bring back what was really important.
And I guess it's things like those that contribute to Slemani being called the capital of culture in many ways.
Yeah.
The fact that, what did you say?
1950s.
No, I mean since the in Iraq, as far as I know, there has been a lot of it's called cultural saloons. They gathered
even outside of the Kurdistan region. I'm sure in Iraq there were, because
all
we have a lot
Iraq,
of great writers
all
and
over
artists.
Iraq. I mean Baghdad and Basra and these places, Mosul even. But in Kurdistan, you had from the 60s, from the 70s, you really had a lot of cool things. Did you guys know that we had an all-female art school in the 60s, in the late 60s? And some of our first artists that were born, not their actual birth, but born as artists in this city, came from that school, and they were women. That's a very interesting thing. I hear nobody talking about that or knowing about that, but Slimani has always been a place where we have supported the arts, where we have welcomed its advancement, where we've never been against being progressive as people who are into art or culture. So I feel like building a museum or having a cultural diwan or doing any of the stuff that I do, I think it only matters to do it here because it has that impact and it has that history to support it.
Do you think that circle has gone smaller in recent days, or it just gets less attention because of other distractions?
How do you mean?
That's been around. Like you're saying, there were a lot of these cultural diwans and gatherings in the past, but
we don't have that.
You don't hear about them anymore. Is it because?
Is it because of what?
Is it because people lack the interest for it, or?
Yes, I think lack of interest is one of our biggest issues here in Kurdistan for anything really, not for art. I mean,
I think that's a good point.
You have people who are as Shad said in the beginning, more interested in tasbihs and qa'das and heli love, and I don't know. That's all good. I'm not against
Jadi
that.
pozaka.
That's all cool. People can enjoy their lives. Nobody's saying don't enjoy your life. But you know, as a citizen from the city, if you really want to feel like Slimani is yours, and it is yours, you guys were born here, for instance, right? And you know, you grew up here, or you're living here now. You should be able to own the history of your city and what it means for you as a person. You know, I know that you guys have a lot of friends who are, you know, coming from outside, like they're foreigners, right? Don't you always like to be like that person who is the agent of the city? You will show them, you know, the cultural spots. You'll show them where it's cool to have a coffee. You'll show them the bazaar, right? We all, you know, this goes like, we don't need a certificate for this. We are all cultural agents of our country, of our nation. So if you really want to represent the Kurds in a good eye, or even their culture in a good eye, that's up to you. Don't let a foreigner do that.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
One of the things that I really dislike, I don't want to use the word hate, I dislike very much, is
Sounds like you hate, bro. Go on.
It's a bit like hate. I see these videos of you know, of people coming here, like expats and foreigners. They're doing these vlogs. They post on YouTube. I saw one the other day where this guy's just going around the bazaar, and all he's saying, and I'll try to find it and send it to you guys. All he's saying is, "Wow, this is crazy. This is crazy. People here are so crazy. This bazaar is crazy. That guy selling food over there is crazy. Why is everything crazy that we do? You do the same thing in your country. Why is that crazy?"
Yeah.
You know? And I feel like that really hurts me when we give the opportunity to be, you know, shown to the world. We give it to someone who's not even Kurdish or someone who's not even Iraqi. So I feel like we're all literally at the helm of our culture. We own that.
That's
and
right.
it's up to us to present
responsibility.
that. It's our responsibility to present it. If you want your history, if you want your culture, if you want your art movement or whatever to be, you know, written by someone else who's not even from your country, that's really sad. That's
true.
really sad. And that and just if that guy ever watches this podcast, I think he was Asian by the looks of it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You guys see that, right?
Yeah.
It's
I
like-
knew what you were talking about from the beginning.
The guy was like, he's
Yeah, he goes
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Shout out to that guy who
Yeah,
did that, who said that, because he said what I wanted to say.
I think that was the most Slimani thing you could
That
have
was the
said
most
about it.
slim. I think he was so nice to him, even saying it. It was the
Yeah.
ta'liq. It was more like you know, come here, like, you know,
Yeah.
you came all that way. At least take a photo of me. But no, I really would like to say that people shouldn't be too much of an Orientalist. Orientalist? How do you say?
Yeah,
Orientalist.
yeah.
When they're coming to these regions, like or to Kurdistan or to
Everything's
Slemani.
so exotic, you know.
Everything's so
like-
exotic. Like I remember a while back there was a few people who came from abroad, and I was, you know, speaking with one of them, and they were like, "We're in one of the nearby towns in Slemani." And I was like, "The Slemani of towns inside Slemani?" I was like, and they were in the bazaar. I was like, "Why don't you just say you're in the marketplace or in the bazaar?" You know, I find it funny, but obviously that's up to us to
You bring up some great points, and you're saying them pretty eloquently, if I might say. But this goes back to something I was about to say, and we drifted off topic. But no, it's fine. And what I was about to mention was how having these arts portrayed and shown so brilliantly here, with more museums like the one you and your people are about to open up.
It was a one-man team till now.
Just no people.
No
Minus
people.
the people.
I always like to say we, but it's only me. So it's quite sad. But
it's a good way to go about things. But these are things that can actually help our economy. How?
yeah,
Well, look at places like the British Museum, the RAF Museum. Look at the big, museums in New York.
they
Look
bring in
at
a lot of tourism. Yeah.
tourism, man. Like, someone might be going through the museum where Dr. Usman's got some of his paintings and
Yeah.
sees that, wow, I'd like to know more about this city.
By your history.
The history. Come here. If there's enough museums, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the sort of person that will
There's
go
actually,
to a city and go to a museum, but there are plenty of people.
I'll give
that
you
would
guys
go on.
some data about that. So I'll give you a data that reflects upon, for instance, KRGs or KRIs. Sort of don't want to get into that part. It's about religion, but
Yeah.
it does sort of bring a good idea to how really imbalanced we are when it comes to our culture. We have around 5,000 mosques in Kurdistan. Okay, guess how many museums we have?
How many?
5. and I think 2 or 3 of them are not operational, so they're not working. So really, you can just say we don't have it. So we're 5 million people in Kurdistan, in Karachi, right? 5 million people, 5,000 mosques, 5 museums. 3 of them aren't operational. Talking about the imbalance. That's an image right there.
If you ask me,
a little bit, but I mean that's insane. I'm not against having
let
let's
the
have
mosques
more mosques.
yeah.
But if you bring the people who have invested in at least 10 of these mosques, they can invest in literally 2 museums. And I'll just put this out there. We even one of the greatest museums that we have is the Slimani National Museum. It's closed right now for renovation. It's been closed for like 2 years for renovation.
I noticed, yeah.
All right. It is the second biggest museum in Iraq after the Baghdad Museum. Do you guys know that?
Nope.
I did not.
And in terms of its collection, it's rich. It's huge. They have so much stuff. But can the public access this museum any day they want? No. It's been closed for 2 years under the title of renovation. But I literally, when you go by it, it's a very public place. The entrances, it's not really being constructed. It's not being worked with. It's just being left.
They just close the gates.
They just close the gates. This art museum that I am building, it is technically the first art museum in Kurdistan. So we're giving access to people to come look at their art history
at a low price.
2,000 dinars.
2,000. Yeah, I mean
it's very affordable.
That's like a parking.
Actually, I this is the funny thing. I wasn't gonna charge anyone at all in the beginning. I had a lot of conversations with my folks and the people who were putting in the money. And I told them, I said, listen, I don't want to charge anybody.
Sounds like there is a we, by the way.
There's a little bit of a we, yeah. And I told them, I said, I don't want people to pay when they come to this place because I really want them to feel like they own these artworks as well. I don't want to be the guy that tells them you actually have to pay money to come inside and see your own art history. No, I said I want to open the door up for them, and I want people to feel at home when they come here. However, economically, this is not feasible.
Of course,
and
that's true.
and even this amount that we'd be putting forth for you to pay, which is 2,000 dinars per person. This is very nominal. This isn't even gonna make us. We're not gonna wild out from your 2,000. Don't get me wrong, but it's in a way. Here's the psychology behind it. If you give something for free, if you allow somebody to enter something for free, they might not respect it the same way if they pay for it. So of course, your art history is still yours. We might be charging you an entrance to where you can see your art history, and this is only in a way to cause some respect, for that building, for what we're doing, right? Obviously, none of this project, because it is a non-profit,
It's probably a loss project.
It is a bashart tapala. You know what that is?
Yeah.
So there's a contract term. It means when I sell you something, or when you pay this, don't come back to me. Your money is gone. So in our way, we are technically, putting a lot of money away, and Fugazi, it's all gone. Nobody knows about this money anymore. However, this is the good thing. So I think I'm saying this maybe for the second time only, and now it's probably going to be way more public. But we had an opportunity, a really, really, firm opportunity to do this museum in Dubai, where I was based prior. I'm still semi-based between Dubai and here. But we had an opportunity to do it there. And, my dad told me, go study it, see how much it would cost. Because I was already based there. And I did. It would have been cheaper to do that museum there than it would have been here. Yeah. It's not, but it's
they have the infrastructure, don't they?
Exactly. So, in countries where there is somewhat a regulated art scene, or there is an ecosystem that supports museums, galleries, collectors and all that, and artists, right? They have the infrastructure. Here, we don't have any of that. We have to build that around our museum as well. So it's costing us more money to do that. If you want to frame a fine art painting, a painting from the 60s, something very delicate, you're not going to send it to the bazaar. You're not going to, take it to a stationery store. You have to build fine framers. You have to come, bring people, train them how to frame a really fine art painting, right? Same goes with insurance. We don't have any insurance for art here. That's something that doesn't really exist in this country.
We don't have insurance for humans, do they?
I think we do.
You do?
Yeah, we have health
I'm not
He's
insurance.
covered, bro.
I
don't know about
I,
you.
I have no. I'll state it for the record.
I'm not
I have
insured.
no insurance whatsoever. I didn't have insurance when I was living in Dubai, so I never cared about that. I did always really try to say that I'm invincible. I'm not. I'm getting sick nowadays a lot. So, I would like to say though that I did speak to a company here.
Okay.
Won't mention the name of the company, but they're an insurance company.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, if I want to insure my paintings, because these paintings are worth a lot of money, and I want them to be protected, right?
Okay.
And I said, do you have that? He said, that's a very interesting point. No, we don't have anything like that. What you can do though is you can insure the building that holds these assets, and you can count each asset. Whenever there's something happening to the assets or the building, you get covered. So I found a loophole here around that, to ensure the artworks are safe.
Wow, man, that is a typical rich man problem. Well done.
Securing the bag.
I have to level with you. It's not about being rich or poor or whatever. Ensure what you buy. Really,
Of course.
Of course. When it comes to art,
Especially art.
anything can go in this country. I once walked into an exhibition here, and it's not a natural disaster that caused a damage on the painting. It was literally a few people, a couple of youngsters, who were screeching the painting with their fingernails.
Blimey.
I swear on my whatever you call it. I swear on that.
Show my museum.
I swear on a museum that's not built yet. It is built. Yeah. And I went up to them, and I was like, "What are you guys on? Why are you doing this?" He's like, "Why do you care?" And I lied. I told them I own the place, and I'm gonna call the police now. And they were like, "You don't need to get worked up like that. We'll go. We were just joking around." And I was like, "That's all cool. You can joke around, but don't mess up property."
That's original.
Right?
Painting.
Don't mess up something that, somebody has made that. Somebody has protected that. And the painting that they were messing with was from 1985.
Blimey.
That's like the middle of the Iran-Iraq war, a year before Anfal starts. So a painting that's been looked after since that time by the artist himself. He's exhibited numerous times. A couple of youngsters come up to it and damage the painting with their fingernails.
It's that easy as well.
It's that easy. So insure the painting. You're rich or poor, it doesn't matter. Your painting is insured.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that currently. It's important.
While we were at the cultural Diwan, you were mentioning, he was presenting some of the paintings that they had up, and the paintings that you were presenting and telling the stories behind, or letting Dr. Osman tell the stories. You mentioned that one of them you were making a bid for. Now, as someone who...
A couple of them.
Yeah, who doesn't really care too much about those sort of things, and will probably never...
Which we will change that by the end of this podcast.
Hopefully, because that is a problem, right? Yeah, I'm into different types of art, okay?
No, that's amazing.
Yeah. But let's talk about how you'd go about bidding for a painting, because I feel like that's an interesting topic.
So usually the term bidding is used when you are bidding at an auction house.
When there's competitors.
Or when there's competitors who are bidding against you for a work, right?
Which is
shouldn't even
non-existent.
Which is non-existent. So technically, that's a very interesting point that you brought up.
Do you need a turtleneck, first of all? Do you need a turtleneck when you're bidding? Because I feel like that's one of the requirements.
A sport jacket will do.
Okay, fine.
I usually wear my sedaras. You guys know the
Yeah,
hats?
yeah.
Yeah, I wear that and I just scare everyone away. They think I own like so much money, and I'm like,
no, that's not what you want to put off, though. Like,
no, not at all.
Right?
You shouldn't be seen.
Yeah.
But technically, so I've only been to an auction maybe 3 times in my life.
Okay. None of them here.
None of them here. No,
okay,
no.
go on.
And once I participated in an auction online, which I got a really good 2 works from that auction. It was in the UK. But I will say this. So obviously, bidding for a painting, that happens outside. We don't have auction houses here or bidding for art. Yeah. It's an interesting point that you brought it up, because technically, and this is not to brag, I am sort of a market maker for artists now.
He's got a monopoly.
I've got a monopoly. I'm the only one who's collecting Kurdish art right now.
Yeah.
Really, if you look at it, I wouldn't like to say that I am
Rich kids, come on. Give him a run for his
You know,
money.
come
That's
on.
true.
He's running away with all
But
these paintings.
I encourage this.
Yeah, I know you do.
I
I know you
encourage
do.
all of the friends
I
that
know you do.
that I have, and even the people that I don't know. You remember that there was a guy at the Diwan, and I told him, I was like, "Do you collect art?" I was like, when you look at an artwork, do you like to buy it?
Oh, right.
I'm trying to push people to do that. I would like it's healthy competition.
Of course.
Who doesn't want that?
It's
Yeah, of course.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about what, as the painter or the artist, obviously same thing. But
He'll be very excited.
yeah, what you're thinking. Yeah, no. What you're thinking when Shad comes up to you and says, "I want a bid for your painting," and he's giving you a price, and you're thinking, "How much is it worth?" I don't know what it's worth because no one else has ever offered me anything. If I say no to him now, does that mean I'm never gonna get it sold? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sad to think
That's
about
a
it like
sad
that.
situation.
In itself, it is quite the politics game when you're buying an artwork. I love that. One of the reasons I collect art is really the chase. So sometimes I have been in a negotiation for an artwork, for one artwork, for over 6 months. Trying to bring the price down. I'm sorry, I have to at some point because as an institutional entity, we're a museum. We do deserve our 20% discount because we are not showing we're not buying these works and hiding them.
Yeah.
We're showing them to the public. We're drawing attention.
Yeah.
We are generating academia,
Of
scholarly work about these artworks and this artist. In a way, that's what I said. I'm a market maker in terms of when I buy this artwork, show it often. I bring up the price overall for this artist.
Yeah.
So I do feel like an artist, when they're in a position where 2 or 3 parties are fighting over their artwork, they are very excited. That's number one. I have always told that they're very excited that people are fighting over their artwork. When I was saying that to Dr. Asman, I know of a few people who are kind of also wanting to get that artwork. And I'll be up in front. I don't always have the dough to buy an artwork.
Okay.
I have to wait sometimes. I have to, sort of, I'm not gonna say beg, but I do oftentimes, I do oftentimes have to wait and see when an opportunity comes. So yeah, sometimes I'm always like, I told him, I was like, which I should be making a bid for sooner or later because obviously it could get out of my reach. Now the funny thing is most artists here, and this is not a backlash or a critique on them, but most artists when you're trying to approach them and buy a work, and at that point they say this work is like X amount of numbers, right?
Yeah.
And it's this much. And you don't have that right now. You could have it in a week, right? So you tell them, I'll come back next week and I'll pay this and I'll buy the artwork from you. They're going to be like, these are 3 of the main things that they say. Number 1 is, I'm going to travel on Tuesday. I have a symposium in France or whatever.
Yeah.
You have to do that before, and all that. That's the number 1 thing. Number 1 thing is they're traveling. Number 2 thing is like, well, Kakshad, there is this person who's also very interested about this artwork. If you don't really make an offer at this point or, pay something, then I might give it away to that person because they're ready. And I'm like, obviously these are all tactics,
They're bluffs
right?
sometimes, yeah.
They're bluffs. I never catch them on their bluff. I'm always like, okay, I'll do my best.
Yeah.
And I come back to it 6 months later. Guess what? The artwork is still there. So
and he hasn't left the country in 6 months.
and he hasn't left the country now.
He can't afford to. He didn't sell anything.
Exactly.
He was planning to with the money.
Yeah.
So I do like to say there has been 3 incidents where I reached out either to an artist, personally, or to their family if they had passed away or they were not in the country, and approached them to buy works. And they gave me ridiculous amounts of dollars and numbers. Like I when I go to buy an artwork, I do my research. So there's a lot of factors that drive an artwork's price. I do that as part of my own research, and then I ask the surrounding people that I'm with or connected to, and I ask about the price history for this artist. So we went, not to name any names or anything, went to the house of an artist. Who had passed away around 10 years ago. He's a very, very great artist. His price history, his most expensive painting, it sold for $700.
Wow.
Obviously, you don't go in and say, I'll give $700 for this artwork. No, you wait for an offer. You wait for the family to give you an offer, or for whoever is responsible to sell that painting. And if it's reasonable, then you also add a little bit on that as respect, as courtesy to that. But let me tell you what happened. So I selected around 4 works. And they came back and said, each of this each of the works he selected for $5,000. And
They were
I was
trying
like,
to cash in on it.
I was
man.
like, I could buy a Picasso drawing for that. Literally, I could. That's $20,000 or something, right? So I was like, that's insane. And really, I'm not trying to make any gain out of this artwork or these artworks that I'm trying to buy from you.
And the most expensive thing he sold was $700.
It's $700, and I told him that's like that's like 400-500% up from what the original price was. So that also happens. I ran into that 3 times.
All right.
Well,
So now that we know how art investments go, and whoever is out there and is looking to sell a painting, if you're looking at the investment tactics, the negotiations, now you know how to get into one with Shad. But I want to talk a bit like I don't want to go too much on Dr. Osman, but one thing that I really liked about the cultural Diwan is how he wasn't getting as much recognition he deserved on the feminism part, on what he was doing for women, because obviously one of his nieces were there, and she's actually turned out to be a brilliant general manager for one of the big companies
very successful person,
in Slimani. So obviously this is something that resonated within his family as well.
Exactly.
But it's not just that. He had a lot of nude paintings as well.
Yeah.
That we looked at.
Very sexy
and
ones.
Really nice ones. And it was actually, they were very, not the nude ones in particular, but there were some of women that were really unconventional. Like the one of the woman that he didn't actually paint while she was there.
Yeah, he painted from memory, and it turned
from memory.
Yeah.
And you could tell it was from memory.
You could tell, the figure was distorted.
It was distorted, but I don't want to go too much about that. But talk a bit about how much he was doing for women, and the lack of recognition, and how that needs to improve.
So on the subject of Dr. Osman, Dr. Osman has, like as I said before, even has a huge body of work. So during the let's say the late 70s, 80s, 90s, he had this sort of post-impressionist vibe going. So for those who don't know, post-impressionist or impressionist art are or one or two movements, but sort of they conflict each other because the post-impressionist changed a little bit, obviously. So Dr. Osman was very much inspired, by using very vivid and bright, colors, depicting women in a fancy way, in a way that was sort of almost romantic. And what I like to say to bring recognition to that is I don't think there were many artists, of his caliber during the 80s, which is literally Iran-Iraq war, Anfal, Kurdish aggression, genocide, all of this crazy stuff happening. You don't have artists, painting nudes or daily life, at the bazaar or, home scenes. So I thought that was beautiful for an artist who literally at the time of war was celebrating life. So that's beautiful. That's wonderful. And I just to say on his take on feminism and portraying a lot of women in his artworks, Dr. Osman, as he said himself, grew up in a house that was full of women and very inspirational women who took care of themselves, who took care of the family. He wanted to portray that in his art as well. So you can almost always see that some of the men figures in his paintings are somewhat always either dying or dead or being hurt or weak, but his women characters are so powerful. They're represented in such a light that you feel that they're not only being beautified by his technique or his art, but they're being empowered.
That's right.
Which is really important.
One of them that caught my eyes was this painting of this woman that was kind of leaning on the table, her head on the table, kind of looking. Yeah.
She was sort of sad, right?
Yeah, and it was a painting of a woman waiting for their husband, coming back from war, like a peshmerga or a fighter.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting take on, like a very interesting angle that he took, because nobody thinks about the family that gets left behind. Everyone's more focused on the war.
Yeah, on the war, what that brings. Yeah.
Men and what's going on.
That's a great point. I think that Dr. Osman was able to show what happens at home during these times.
Yeah.
What is essentially what is life, during war and all that for people who weren't involved at the forefront.
And a lot of people, which like there's so many issues with women's rights and whatnot, and what's going on within
gender issues,
empowering women and gender issues, and to do with our cultural flaws. a lot of the things that he was portraying and depicting in his paintings were things that really resonated with me. Not as in like how I was being,
As a woman?
oppressed. Yeah.
How's that?
So like the sort of things that he was bringing up was like things like just what he said, the woman being left behind and being told that there's going to be da'wats after they've just hand washed the whole family's clothes. Like these were things that I was like, damn,
Yeah.
my mum's been through that.
Yeah.
Like my mum, thank God, has never gone through abuse or anything even worse than that. But she has been through these things, and this is what touches me, and this is why we need to talk about these things that really are personal.
That was great. That was literally the greatest thing that anybody can say. Because you know why? And I'll give you the reason why. Because that proves the statement that I believe the statement is a fact. It's a factual statement. That's the power of art. Art can make you feel these things. So I love how you were reminded of your own family's suffering, your own family's history, you growing up as a child through the visual representation of another person's family. So I feel like that's why art is powerful. It's convenient, and it should be in our daily conversations. That was a really important point. I like to say that mad respect, because literally you caught what is the essential thing to care for art. If you want to be interested in art, it's because you can connect to it. Art shouldn't be this thing that you can you feel like you're detached to it. You guys asked the question on the poll, right? The question, is art a luxury or is it a necessity? It's not. It's neither. It's not a luxury nor a necessity. It is, however, luxurious and necessary at the same time. So I will say this, art for the people.
All of the above.
All of the above. Art for the people. For people like Shad, or people like you, or people like me, anyone, a normal person who has a very healthy function to art and culture, right? It's very important that at some point, when we're looking at an artwork, it doesn't need to be a painting. When Shad says, I like, other types of art, that's a thing too. I believe in that too. You like that poster, or you like that poster. It brings something, right? You saw an artwork at my house.
Yeah,
one of the couple who were hugging each other. You remember what I told you about it?
Yeah.
I said, I didn't buy it because it's a nice painting, or I didn't buy it because there's a really deep meaning behind this painting.
Resonating with.
Technique aside, it was a great painting, but it resonates with me. It reminded me of literally sort of the same scene in my own life. And I was like, I need that artwork in my house, in front of my eyes, to always remind me of that position that I was once in my lifetime, right? In my life. So, kudos, man. You brought a good point up. That's why he's the host. He's the co-host of this thing.
And on that same topic,
wouldn't have been able to think about that without your presentation. Just go on.
On that same topic, I'm not sure if it was you or Dr. Asman that mentioned this during the cultural Diwan, but sometimes we view history from these visual representations. It doesn't necessarily have to be through writing, because not a lot of people are interested in writing, whether you like it or not. Literature, even though it's amazing, it's great, it needs to exist. This one's this way of presenting history. I think it resonates more with people.
Appealing in a way. I'll say this. To answer your point, I'll begin with something that happened or happens frequently. And when people see me all the time, I'm posting about art or I'm talking about art, and I'm so passionate. And what is this guy on? Is he on LSD? What is this guy on? Like, he's just talking about random art stuff all the time. The funny thing is once or a few times, frequently, as I said, I get asked.
Yeah.
It's like someone comes and says, "Hey, I'm seeing that you're into art. I don't even know what art is." Sorry, I'm doing a white trashy accent, but it does really sound like that. Where they go like, I don't know what that all is, but here's something that you can see or like because you're into art. And I think to myself, I'm like, what does one get from art? Really, why do you need to get anything that's materialistic in a way, like or even understanding it?
Yeah,
I view art in the same way that I view music, literature, poetry, film. We're able to connect with films. I love Quentin Tarantino, so
some of them
mad respect for that. I watch his movies, right? I understand those movies. I reflect on it. I connect with it. I like the soundtrack of those movies, right? I'm drawn into the music. I can understand the music. Someday I'll feel like what was his name in the film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Brad Pitt. What was his name
In the movie.
in the movie? Yeah,
Oh, there was.
Stunt double. I don't
he
know.
had
had
a
a good
very
name.
easygoing
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Go on.
But
I'll
anyways,
try to look it up.
sometimes I want to feel like Brad Pitt, beating a couple of people up. I know that sounds really violent, but sometimes, I put that song on and it makes me feel that.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like, the same way a writer is detailing a novel or a book, they're writing about the history of their country or, the history of themselves, a personal history. Same with, for instance, how a singer sings a song or writes a song. Same way an artist produces an artwork. They're meant, for you to look at, connect with, reflect on. And they're the best type, because they're visual. You can see it, you know. It's along the lines of film, It's along the
I don't know
lines...
if it's the best type. For me, listening to a song and hearing the lyrics along with the melody and the harmony.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like,
it's different for everyone.
It's different for everyone, but I do feel like it should be also considered the same way. So people shouldn't really have that. What's his name?
It's Cliff, by the way.
I love that name.
Cliff Booth.
Cliff Booth. It's such an American name. It's such a stuntman's name.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is like, the art should be viewed the same way as you view music or literature, anything normal that's happening in your life that you daily connect with, right? Because
Why do you keep separating art from music? I mean, you could just say paintings, no?
Of course, that's a good point. I say that because if you really want to delve into what we're talking about, paintings and stuff, it's called the plastic arts.
Okay.
So painting, sculpture, video work, installations, whatever you want to call it, modern contemporary art, that's all called plastic arts.
Right.
All right. That is a term that's not really used among normal conversations.
It sounds pretty,
It doesn't even. If I say to someone plastic arts, they're gonna be like, "You mean art that's plastic or what?" So I don't want to get into all of that. What I did is I just say art, as in painting and printmaking and all that, sculpture, as opposed to music. But I do believe that music, literature, poetry, film, and all of these fall under the arts. But when you're talking about the plastic arts, that's painting and sculpture and all that.
Well said, man. I mean, look, honestly, we've had a lot of podcasts where, you have an expectation and some go below, some go above. This is the latter. Not that I expected anything less.
Goes above? Did you say above?
Above. Yeah. No,
There's even more that we haven't talked about culturally because we're going to talk about... Yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of things.
I do know I take a lot to answer and talk.
No,
it's fine.
This is why it's good.
I was born with teeth. No, this is a true story.
Way.
I was born with these front two teeth.
What?
No way.
My parents thought I was the devil for like a week. They took me to a sheikh and all that.
That is weird.
A sheikh.
Yeah, because that's what they do. That's what
that's where you
do.
take your baby if it's born with teeth, I guess.
And they did pull out these two teeth after a week.
Really?
I'm not kidding.
Blimey.
I'm glad it grew back though.
My dad always jokes. He's like, "That's why you talk so much, because you were born with teeth already."
Yeah.
You look, we're hitting the hour mark, so if you want to ask a question that's been on your mind,
Please do.
Yeah. We were going to talk about on social media.
Do I have the right to have a little bit more time on this?
absolutely.
you can have all the time
Have a
you
camera
want.
for yourself. That's
Wonderful. Let's have a full-on one.
That's fine. On social media, you're very vocal about your opinion, politically, socially, whatever you want to call it. And I think you identify more as an Iraqi than a Kurd first.
Iraqi Kurdish.
And and a lot of people can find that controversial. And I do think, because we had a conversation earlier, the way you represent yourself online can be misleading to what you actually stand for. And I want you to basically talk about why you do talk about being an Iraqi and supporting Iraq and the unity of Iraq over Kurdistan.
Okay, so with your last part of the question, which I support the unity of Iraq over Kurdistan, I don't like to phrase it that way.
Okay.
So I will tell you the way that I think about it.
Please do.
I value the importance of such entities as Kurdistan, as a geographic location, as a country someday. I do believe that Kurdistan should be independent sometime in the future, whenever that's possible. However, the unity of Iraq is something of a contemporary concern right now. It's a concern for me now. So to be logical and rational and to be realistic, really, we are living in an age where your passport is Iraqi, which means your nationality is Iraqi. However, are you, when we're saying Iraqi, why is the term Arab so synonymous to Iraqi? Which I don't believe is the cause at all. I'm Kurdish and I'm from Iraq, and I'm very, very proud of that. I'm proud of identifying myself as Iraqi Kurdish because we are like a huge number of Kurds here, in Kurdistan. Sorry, in Iraq. We have our own region. We have contributed. So that's one of the things that I was going to say that ties into my, I wouldn't call it nationalism, I'd call it patriotism for a change.
Okay.
But it is technically that, I'm looking back, for instance, at Kurdish art history in Iraq because I want to see, there's a lot of Kurdish artists who contributed to Iraq, the Iraqi art scene, who were, part of big art movements and groups, who have their work about Iraq and Kurdistan, who did a lot, not just for Kurdish people in Kurdistan, but for Iraq as well. So I think it's important that in a day like this, we're able to identify ourselves, our ethnicity. So I can differ between my nationality and my ethnicity. I'm nationally Iraqi.
Okay.
Ethnically, I'm a Kurd. And I don't think the term Iraqi is synonymous with Arab. I think that's what Pan-Arabists start doing, and I'm against that. I don't really, bond that much with people who like to Arabize everything. I'm not for that. But I will say that I do believe, in my eyes, in my opinion, Iraq is a secular country. So I don't believe that Iraq is even Muslim for that, because there's so many.
I mean, that's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Of course, I said it in my eyes only. And I also don't feel like Iraq is Arabic or Arab. I feel like it's multi-ethnic and multi-religious.
Okay, that's. I think we can end it on that note. That was
Sure.
very well put. So
Well put, and
Thank you.
in general, made a great pitch for art investors, made a great pitch for artists. But look, well done. You're doing really well, and I've really enjoyed having you on, Shad.
Thank you.
Man to man.
Thank you,
It's
guys.
been great. But yeah, look, we should do this. And I know you're looking to open up a podcast or anything. All power to you.
Thank you.
Invite us on.
Of course. Of course.
Look, yeah, so all power to you for the museum, for the Diwan, for the podcast.
Thank you.
If you need anything, we're here to help you out.
Of course.
And yeah, Highly Okay Podcast, everyone. Like and subscribe. Shad Abdulkarim on Instagram. And shout out to Erin behind the scenes. Have a good one.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.